Fellas, we're staying in Millennium for a little while longer as the Pajama Millennium event Secret Midnight Party is returning this coming Tuesday, with Pajama Koyuki finally arriving as the new 3-star student. Plus Pajama Yuka, Pajama Noah, New Year Fuka, and NIHAHAHA's rerun banners will all also be available. I've already previously covered the 4 rerun characters in different videos. I'll leave the links in the pinned comment. You can go check them out if you like, they should still hold up decently well. Anyways, without further ado, here is a short review of Pajama Koyuki. NIHAHAHA! Our cute, adorable, mischievous gremlin hacker is finally here for a sleepover in her pajamas. It is none other than Pajama Koyuki! Fellas, I know a lot of y'all have been waiting for Koyuki to get her playable ult for a while now. For some of us, it even goes as far back as 2021/22 with Bunny Koyuki during the Bunny Chasers event. And I'm so happy for my Koyuki bros that her pajama version is playable at last. Otherwise, a repeat of the Koyuki incident might have to happen again. Not only does she look exceptionally adorable in the oversized yellow bunny pajamas that was gifted by my wife Yuka, but her usual long-ass twin tails and her tiny little fang further accentuates her cuteness. Not to mention, she somehow acts even cuter whilst wearing those pajamas. From her various battle motions to her playing the pop-up Peroro toy in her furniture interaction, and who can forget the adorable little dance she does in the cafe. It's so damn cute, funny, and peak, man. I also gotta talk about her L2D a little. Her shocked expression as we beat her in a game at the arcade, her pouty teary-eyed face as she's unable to accept that she lost, those white empty eyes as we pat her head, the way we can touch her finger and move it around, folks, is just an amazing L2D all around. And I'm glad the devs have really done her justice after making us wait for so long. So, what kind of student is she? Well, Pajama Koyuki is a permanent special mystic supporter who has the following terrain modes: S combat power in urban terrains, D combat power in field, and B combat power indoors. Plus, she also uses shoes, badge, and watch for equipment, with the shoes and watch upping her basic skills damage a little. It's time to talk about her skills. Firstly, her 3-cost max level EX allows her to cleanse a debuff from one ally, while increasing the crit damage of all striker students by 15.4% for 30 seconds. And if she successfully removes the debuff from the targeted ally, her crit damage buff's multiplier is enhanced by 3 times. As you can tell from this EX, Pajama Koyuki plays a hybrid role as an AoE crit damage buffer and debuff cleanser, with her latter ability being her main appeal since there are a lot more crit damage buffers/sources compared to debuff removal units. Not to mention, it allows her to work as a good option in those content that required said debuff cleansing, especially since she can simultaneously cover 2 roles at once. Not only that, her crit damage buff is pretty weak unless she is able to remove a debuff, upgrading it from a small 15.4% to around a decent 46.2%. Cause remember, her buff's multiplier is boosted by 3 times if she meets the debuff removal requirement, so it makes her cleansing ability even more important. However, keep in mind that there are certain debuffs, especially in some raids, that are unremovable. For instance, the 50% recovery boost debuff in the Gauss raid. It will specify that the debuff cannot be dispelled, so her cleanse will not work on these. Moving on, with her basic skill, she deals damage to enemies in a fan-shaped area with its 444% damage multiplier at level 10 skill every 40 seconds, whilst dealing an additional 177% damage to extra large enemies. Her basic is a decent damage dealing skill which becomes more effective against enemies categorized as extra large, since its damage multiplier is boosted to around 621% when attacking enemies of this size. And from what I know, extra large enemies consist of a number of raid bosses including Bina, Cheesed, Horde, Perodzilla, Set, Chokma, Tifaref, Yasod, and Drombaka. Next, her enhanced skill increases her attack by 26.6%, whereas her enhanced skill plus at UA40 provides her with an additional 38% crit damage buff, with both of these simply increasing her basic skills damage. And her UA40 isn't necessary at all, as her main job is to cleanse debuff and buff your students' crit damage. Meanwhile, her max level sub skill allows her to increase all allies' attack speed by 17.3%, with this buff being extra useful when paired in conjunction with her AoE crit damage buff in multiple DPS formations, especially those with auto-attacking damage dealers, as these 2 buffs can help to greatly increase their damage. Finally, her UE50 upgrades her urban combat power from S to SS, while her UE60 grants her an additional 0.5 max cost, both of which aren't needed either as they don't really benefit her, and 3 to 4 star Pajama Koyuki is sufficient. Overall, Pajama Koyuki is a fairly good debuff cleanser who can provide team-wide crit damage and attack speed buffs, with the former becoming stronger if she successfully dispels a debuff, whilst also being able to dish out a bit of AoE damage. So let's move on to Pajama Koyuki's users. Again, since she is primarily utilized for her debuff cleanse, she has been brought into the niche content that calls for said debuff removers like her. For instance, in some event challenge stages, specific joint firing drills that have a debuff remover mechanic, and most importantly, in a few endgame raids. As of her release, Pajama Koyuki's main use so far has been in Drumbaka, the new total assault raid that's currently only in JP, since debuff cleanses are absolutely needed for both phases of this raid. In phase 1, the Kani will periodically launch his bar spray skill, which will apply the adhesive fluid debuff onto the 2 control panels behind your team, as you can see from the footage. Thus, you will need to dispel this debuff from one of the control panels in order to move the platform your students are standing on either to the left or right to avoid his claw jabs. And whichever one you remove the debuff from depends on the claw he's using. If he's using his left jab, left base from his POV, you cleanse the panel on the opposite side. In this case, the left panel from your POV, to move the platform in that direction and vice versa. If you're still confused, don't worry, there will be an indication showing you which panel to cleanse. Meanwhile, in phase 2, you once again need to dispel the adhesive fluid debuff, this time from the rusted ore drum, and he will apply this debuff on the drum through his toxic ball spray skill. Plus, the drum will also accumulate this debuff every 10 seconds, with it lasting for 60 seconds. And on Insane, this debuff can stack up to 3 times, 5 times for Torment to Lunatic. The drum will deal 20% damage to all allies every 4 seconds, but if it has adhesive fluid, it will instead increase to 40% damage. Though on Insane and above, the damage is increased by 20% per AF stack, up to a max of 80%/120% depending on the difficulty. However, if this debuff is removed from the drum, your entire team's attack and attack speed are increased by 25% and 75% respectively for 35 seconds. Plus, for every adhesive fluid stack removed from the drum, it increases the damage taken by all of Drumbaka's parts by 5%. Hence, debuff cleanses such as Pajama Koyuki are highly required in this raid to tackle the adhesive fluid mechanic. And while she can theoretically be utilized in both phases, she is used more often in phase 1 as she is a good partner for Armed Amy, who will benefit from hers and Ritsu's attack speed buffs as her enhanced normal attacks damage scales off attack speed buffs, allowing her to deal tons more raid AA damage to his light armored hull. Remember, in phase 1 on Insane and above, raid AA damage dealers are needed as his hull takes a lot less damage from EX skills. Plus, she can also serve as the team's crit damage buffer, with her being able to keep up her enhanced crit damage buff since she'll be cleansing the control panels constantly, further boosting Amy's and your blue DPS unit's damage output. Not only that, Pajama Koyuki was mainly used on Lunatic difficulty by a good number of senseis, being brought into one of their phase 1 formations cause this difficulty needs a lot more teams. However, while her pick rate in this raid is quite good on Lunatic, a lot of senseis opted to use other debuff cleansers on the other difficulties, such as Nico, who can also grant potent EXQ damage buffs, which are way stronger for your DPS units, especially ones like Armed Aris. Plus, she is an excellent partner for Otogi, whose normal attack and basic skill damage is multiplied based on her EXQ damage stat, Erika, as well as Armed Toki, both of whom can additionally provide heals too, with the former being able to remove 3 debuffs at level 5 EX, meaning cleansing more adhesive fluid stacks from the drum whilst also serving as a good AoE crit damage buffer for your DPS units. But as always, you will likely be using most of them on Lunatic, plus you can still use her for whatever difficulty if you need a debuff cleanser, as she does the job very well. Moving on, another raid that she has been used in is Perodzilla. Since her EX can dispel the defense and attack down debuffs, the latter only on Torment/Lunatic, that he inflicts through his laser. Though in the previous Perodzilla Grand Assault in JP, she saw very little use against this boss since it was only up to Torment difficulty, with a few senseis using her on this difficulty in one of their teams. And it'll be interesting to see if her pick rate rate will increase when Lunatic Perodzilla actually returns. Other than that, she could be a decent unit for Hieronymus to remove the healing debuff from the urn so you don't have to wait for its 20-second duration. Plus, it also allows her to give more potent crit damage buffs to your team. However, she needs to be paired with an actual dedicated healer to fully restore the urn's HP. Not to mention, the special slot will be pretty contested with other more important units. But who knows, she could still be a respectable pick for Lunatic Hyro. She can also be decent for Shirokuro as her attack speed / crit damage buffs are useful for blue AA units like Shiroko Terra in this raid. Though let's be honest, we might just be using Armed Aris now. And while she can remove the boss's movement speed debuff that they apply on Insane and above, she cannot cleanse the raid's permanent 80% recovery boost debuff. Lastly, while you can technically use her as a general AoE crit damage buffer, again, her buff isn't that strong unless she is able to dispel a debuff. So you're better off using other AoE crit damage buffers whilst reserving her for content that actually requires her debuff cleanse. So all in all, should you pull for Pajama Koyuki? Well, in my opinion, if you want to tackle Lunatic Drumbaka, then yes, you can consider pulling for her, as she'll be a pretty nice debuff cleanser option for one of your teams. However, outside of Lunatic, she isn't really used much on the lower difficulties or even in other raids. So I personally feel if you don't plan on taking on Drumbaka too seriously, like you only want to do up to Insane, you may just skip her and save your Paroxysms for future units, like any of the upcoming debuff removers for example, like Nico, Erika or Rena. Though remember, our cute Delulu Tsundere is also a buffer for special DPS units. Or you can also use the existing debuff dispellers such as Toki, Chinatsu and Mari. Not Rumi though, as she takes 2 times damage from his yellow attack. Regardless, if you're one of the many Koyuki bros who have been waiting so long for her ult to finally arrive, and if our adorable little hacker gremlin is your waifu, then go ahead and pull for her. And that's all for this week's review. Again, I've already previously talked about Pajama Yuka, Pajama Noah, Nyuya Fuka and Nyuya Haruna in different videos. You can go check this out if you like, links in the pinned comment. Anyways, thanks for watching. Let me know who you're pulling for if you are. Good luck with your pulls and I'll see y'all in the next one.